It all started with the front door. A Tuesday evening, nothing special about it. I pulled into the driveway at 6:17 p.m., like I did every other day. Brenda's car was already there, parked slightly crooked, which was pretty standard. My wife wasn't exactly known for precision driving. I grabbed my toolbox from the truck bed. I'd been meaning to fix the loose hinge on the pantry door for weeks. Then, I walked up to the house and inserted my key into the lock, and the lock didn't turn. That's when I knew something was wrong. I frowned, twisted the key again, harder this time. Nothing. The deadbolt was engaged from the inside. Brenda was home, obviously. But why would she lock me out? We weren't exactly in the middle of a Cold War or anything. Sure, things had been a little off lately. She'd been distant, distracted. But that's what happens in marriages sometimes, right? People get caught up in their own worlds. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Still nothing. I pulled out my phone and called her. It rang 3 times before going to voicemail. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who jumps to conclusions. I don't assume the worst. I've never been one of those paranoid husbands who goes sniffing through text messages or checking mileage on the car. But standing there, locked out of my own house while my wife ignored my calls? That was suspicious. I walked around to the side of the house, through the gate, and into the backyard. The curtains in the living room were drawn, but there was a faint glow of light seeping through the edges. I stepped onto the porch and tried the sliding glass door. Unlocked. Bingo. I stepped inside, closing it softly behind me, like I was the intruder in my own home. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No TV. No music. No Brenda moving around in the kitchen, pretending she didn't hear me come in. I stood still for a second, listening. Then, from upstairs, the sound of hurried footsteps. And a voice. Not Brenda's. A man's voice. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up as I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. It was faint, muffled by the walls, but unmistakable. A deep, unfamiliar voice. Then Brenda's voice, speaking quickly, urgently. I took a step toward the stairs, heart hammering. There were a lot of explanations for this. Maybe a repairman had come over. Maybe she was on the phone, using speaker. Maybe. A loud thud from upstairs shattered that thought. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my pulse in my throat. The bedroom door was shut. Another sound, something shuffling. I reached for the handle. Locked. Another locked door. I knocked, hard this time. Brenda? Silence. Then, after a second, the sound of a window opening. Oh, come on. I stepped back, glanced toward the bathroom door, and in a split-second decision, shouldered it open instead. The force sent me stumbling inside, where I caught myself against the counter. And that's when I saw it. Not my wife. Not some mystery man. No. I saw a rope, tied to the towel rack, hanging down into the bathtub. A makeshift escape route. I blinked. What the heck? I rushed over and leaned into the tub. The rope extended all the way down to the first-floor window in the laundry room below. Someone had just climbed down this thing. That was the thud I'd heard. I turned back toward the bedroom door, still locked. This was no ordinary affair. This was a full-blown espionage mission. I didn't bother knocking again. I stepped back, took a deep breath, and kicked the door open. And there was Brenda, standing in the middle of the room, hair a mess, face flushed, wearing her workout leggings and an oversized hoodie like she was just lounging around casually. Except she wasn't casual. She looked guilty, like a criminal caught red-handed. "Oh," she said. "Just oh." As if this was a perfectly normal situation, as if I had just walked in at the wrong time during some kind of misunderstanding. I scanned the room, but there was no mystery man in sight. Whoever it was had successfully executed Operation Get the Heck Out via bathroom escape. Brenda licked her lips, folded her arms, and put on her best, nothing to see here, face. "What are you doing home so early?" she asked. "Seriously? That's where we're starting?" I pointed toward the bathroom. "Do you want to explain why there's a rope hanging out of our second-floor window? Or should I just assume you've started training for some kind of extreme sports event?" She hesitated. A split-second flicker of panic crossed her face. Then she recovered. "Okay," she said, drawing in a breath. "I can explain." Oh, this should be good. I crossed my arms and waited. She looked down at her feet, sighed dramatically, and then looked back up at me. It's not what it looks like. I laughed, a dry, humorless chuckle. Brenda, this is exactly what it looks like. Unless you're about to tell me you just caught a burglar mid-heist and he made a daring escape, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on here. Another pause. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, fine. Yes. But listen, Stephen, it's complicated. Sure. You had a guy in here. He climbed down a rope like some kind of action movie stuntman. That's complicated? She winced. I let out a slow exhale, shaking my head. Brenda, who the heck was in our house? She chewed her lip. Then, she whispered a name, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. Because it wasn't some stranger. It wasn't a coworker. It wasn't even an ex-boyfriend. No, it was someone much, much worse. I took a step back, gripping the doorframe like I might actually fall over. I looked at her, my wife, my lying wife, standing in our bedroom, and I said the only thing I could manage. You have got to be freaking kidding me. Brenda whispered it like it was some fragile secret, like saying it too loud might make the universe implode. And for a second, I thought maybe I misheard her. I had to mishear her, because there was no way, she just said that name. I stared at her, waiting for some kind of correction. And, oh wait, I meant something else. Or a haha, just kidding, got you good, Stephen? Nothing. Just Brenda, standing there, shifting uncomfortably, looking like she wanted to crawl into the drywall and never be seen again. Brenda, I said, slow and careful, do you want to say that one more time? Maybe enunciate this time, just so we can both be sure we're not losing our minds? She swallowed. Stephen, louder, please. Who? Just jumped out of our bathroom window? She winced, took a deep breath, and then, in a voice just a fraction above a whisper, she said it again. Eric. And just like that, my entire brain short-circuited. I physically stepped back, like the name itself had shoved me in the chest. No. Nope. You're lying. That's a lie. Tell me you're lying. She pressed her lips together, and that's when I knew she wasn't. Eric. Eric? Not some mystery guy. Not an old high school fling. Not even the usual cliché of, oh, it was just a co-worker from the office. No. Eric. As in Eric Mitchell. As in my best friend since 3rd grade. As in the guy who was supposed to be the best man at our wedding until his appendix exploded 3 days before the ceremony, and he had to get rushed into emergency surgery. That Eric. I had to sit down. I didn't even care that it was the floor. The ground felt like the safest place at that moment because I was one more piece of bad news away from full-body collapse. Brenda took a hesitant step forward, like maybe she thought now was the time for some damage control. Stephen, just... I held up a hand. No. Nope. Give me a second. I need to process. I need to let the information settle before my brain actually explodes and we have a much bigger problem on our hands. I needed answers. I needed a time machine. I needed to know how long my wife and my best friend had been secretly auditioning for the Olympics in rope climbing skills. I ran a hand down my face, took a deep breath, and looked at her. How long? Brenda's eyes flicked to the door. Stephen. How long? She exhaled. Not long. I narrowed my eyes. Define not long. Because for me, not long is like a few weeks. Maybe a month if you really want to push the limits of language. If you say something like, oh, Stephen, it's only been 4 years. I swear I will. 3 months, she blurted out. I stared at her. 3 months. Silence. Then, I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I had no other option. 3 months. 3 whole months. Wow. Incredible. Absolutely fantastic work, Brenda. I clapped my hands together once, just to emphasize the absolute ridiculousness of what I was hearing. You know what's crazy? Eric was here 2 weeks ago. He was sitting on that couch, drinking my beer, talking about how I should switch my car insurance provider. And the whole time, what? You were sneaking around behind my back? Having secret window escapes like this is some kind of badly written action movie? She had the nerve to look offended. It's not like that. Oh, it's not? Oh, great. Because from where I'm sitting, which is, fun fact, on the floor of my own house because I physically lost the ability to stand after hearing this nonsense, it looks exactly like that. Brenda rubbed her temples like she was the one having a stressful night. Stephen, I didn't want you to find out like this. Oh, well, pardon me. How inconsiderate of me to show up at my own house after work. Clearly, I should have given you more notice so you could schedule the betrayal at a more convenient time. She took another step forward. Stephen, Nope. No more words. I need to see it with my own eyes. See what? I stood up. The escape route. Her face paled. I walked past her, into the bathroom, and leaned out of the window. And sure enough, there it was. The rope, dangling pathetically from the towel rack, leading straight down to the laundry room window. I squinted, and that's when I saw the shoe. A sneaker, just sitting there, on the ground outside. I turned back to Brenda. Brenda. She refused to look at me. I pointed at the shoe. Did Eric fall out of his own shoe while making his escape? Her face was bright red. Oh my gosh, I said, realization hitting me. He lost his shoe, and he couldn't go back for it. This is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Brenda finally snapped. Fine. Okay. Yes. He lost his shoe. Are you happy now? Oh, beyond happy. I am ecstatic. I threw my arms in the air. My wife and my best friend are sneaking around behind my back, and now Eric is limping around town with one sock and no dignity. This is better than I ever could have imagined. Brenda groaned, grabbing at her hair. Stephen, Nope. No more talking. I need to go. She frowned. Go where? Anywhere. Literally anywhere but here. I need to go stand in a field somewhere and scream into the sky. I turned to leave. And then, because this night was somehow still getting worse, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out of my pocket. One new text. From Eric. A single word. Sorry. I stared at the screen. Then, slowly, I turned the phone around and held it up so Brenda could see it. She closed her eyes and sighed. Oh, he was supposed to wait. I froze. Wait for what? Her eyes shot open. I narrowed mine. And then, I understood. Brenda had a plan. I wasn't supposed to find out this way. I wasn't supposed to find out at all. At least, not yet. I pocketed my phone. Brenda, were you about to? The front door slammed open, and Eric stood there, one shoe, out of breath, and holding something in his hand. I looked at Brenda, then at Eric, then at the thing he was holding, and I said the only thing that made sense. What the heck? Eric stood in my doorway, panting like he had just finished running a marathon, which, considering his current shoe situation, he probably had. One shoe, no dignity, and holding something in his hand that I was very sure I wasn't going to like. Behind me, Brenda let out the kind of grown people make when they realize their grand master plan has been completely obliterated by human stupidity. Eric pointed at me, still trying to catch his breath. Stephen, listen. I pointed back at him. No. His forehead creased. But you don't even know what I'm going to say. Oh, really? I scoffed. I can take a wild guess. Let's see. Maybe something like, oh, Stephen, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Except, fun fact, it is exactly what it looks like. He winced. Okay. Yeah. But. No but. There is no but. You just launched yourself out of my house like a budget stunt double, left your shoe behind like some reverse Cinderella situation, and now you're back here holding. I squinted. What even is that? Eric glanced at his hand, as if he just remembered he was holding a crumpled piece of paper. Brenda groaned even louder. Eric, seriously? He blinked at her. What? You told me to bring it. Not like this. She threw her hands up. The plan was. I held up my finger. Nope. Don't finish that sentence. I do not want to hear about the plan. I turned back to Eric. And you. What is that? He looked down at the paper again, hesitating like he was actually considering his life choices. Probably a few years too late for that. Then, With all the dramatic flair of a man who just ruined his entire existence in one evening, he held it out. I snatched it. I unfolded it. And I almost lost my ability to read because my brain just refused to process the words on the page. Brenda cleared her throat. Stephen, I held up the paper like it was a cursed object. A contract. Not just any contract. A Stephen doesn't find out yet contract. I blinked. I stared at the actual, printed words in front of me, my eyes jumping across the bullet points. Stephen should not find out about our relationship until a more stable transition period has been established. No changes to daily routines should occur that would cause immediate suspicion. If Stephen discovers anything ahead of schedule, emergency escape protocol will be initiated. I paused, looked up. Emergency escape protocol? Brenda shifted awkwardly. That's, I looked back down. Emergency escape protocol should only be enacted in extreme cases. If triggered, Eric will exit via the bathroom window and reconvene at the secondary meeting point. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. The secondary meeting point. Eric coughed. Yeah, that didn't really work out. No kidding. I kept reading. Brenda will follow in a separate vehicle once the situation has been de-escalated. I let out a slow breath. Brenda. She flinched. I turned the paper around, pointing at the signature line at the bottom. She signed it. Not just her. Eric too. And, oh, this was rich. It was notarized. My voice came out weirdly calm. Brenda. She took a step back. Stephen, You got a legal document drawn up for your affair? She bit her lip. I thought it was smart. I dropped my arms, staring at the ceiling like maybe the answer to why my life had turned into an experimental reality show was hidden up there. You thought, I inhaled deeply. Brenda, I need you to explain to me, in great detail, how you came to the conclusion that having a legally binding, signed, and notarized contract was a good way to keep an affair secret. She stayed silent. Eric, however, did not. He stepped forward, hands up. Okay, look, before you get all, upset. Oh, too late, buddy. Just listen. The contract wasn't my idea. Brenda said we needed to make sure everything was organized. I turned to my soon-to-be ex-wife. Organized? She nodded, clearly hoping I'd just keel over and pass out from pure exhaustion before she had to elaborate. Eric, being the absolute genius that he is, continued digging the hole deeper. She said she didn't want things to be messy, he explained. For you. My entire body twitched. For me. Eric nodded. Yeah. She thought if we planned everything properly, you wouldn't have to go through any unnecessary. I held up a hand. Eric. Yeah. Shut up. He did. For the first time ever, he actually shut up. I walked over to the couch and sat down because standing was officially too much work. Brenda and Eric stood there, staring at me, as if I was the one being weird right now. I gestured toward the door. So what was supposed to happen? You were supposed to escape, meet at the secondary location, and then what? More silence. I exhaled through my nose. Brenda. She cleared her throat. Well, if you found out too soon, we were just going to, wait a little longer to tell you the rest. My jaw clenched. The rest. She nodded. I rubbed my temples. Brenda, is there something worse than what I already know? She made a weird noise. Define worse? I groaned. Oh, this is incredible. Eric shifted. We were just waiting for the right time. Oh, fantastic strategy, guys. You really nailed the execution on this one. I gestured wildly. A plus work. Just absolutely seamless. Eric had the nerve to look mildly offended. Stephen, come on, man. I know this is rough, but... I shot up from the couch so fast he took an actual step back. Eric. Why, yeah. You have one shoe. He looked down at his feet, then back at me. I can go get it? I blinked. Eric. Yeah. Get out. He turned to Brenda. She crossed her arms. You really ruined this whole thing, He threw his hands up. I ruined it? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want me to just stay out there with one shoe like a moron? I walked over, grabbed his shoe off the ground, and threw it at him. "Take your shoe," I said, voice completely void of emotion, "and leave. Both of you." Brenda hesitated. "But—" I pointed at the door. "Out." Eric scrambled to put his shoe on. Brenda finally sighed, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the exit. Then she stopped. "Stephen." I turned away. I heard the door shut behind them. I sat back down. Then, I picked up the stupid contract and laughed, because this was the stupidest night of my entire life. I sat there, holding the contract of ultimate stupidity, rereading the words for the third time because my brain was still refusing to accept that it was real. Brenda and Eric literally notarized their own cheating. They thought they could schedule my heartbreak like it was a cable subscription cancellation. They had a whole plan. A step-by-step guide to ruining my life in the most organized way possible. And now? Now it was my turn. I wasn't about to do anything stupid. No screaming, no throwing things, no making some grand emotional scene. No, they already thought they had the upper hand, which meant the best way to ruin them was to let them think they were still in control, and then pull the rug out from under their entire existence. I grabbed my phone, opened my notes app, and started planning their absolute collapse. Step 1. Use their own stupidity against them. Brenda and Eric thought they were so smart, thought they were being so responsible with their affair. A signed contract? Notarized? What they failed to realize was that legal documents work both ways. I called a lawyer. Not some random guy either, a guy who specialized in contract law. After an hour-long conversation filled with so many legal loopholes that even I started feeling bad for Brenda and Eric, I got exactly what I needed. Step 2. Make Brenda's life a living spreadsheet of misery. Brenda loved organization. She loved rules, loved structure, loved making things as efficient as possible. Well, guess what? So did the IRS. Brenda had been handling our joint finances for years. She insisted on it because she was better with numbers and wanted to optimize everything, which meant she had cut corners. I knew it. She knew it. And now? So would the government. I went through every financial record we had, found every single gray area deduction, and sent an anonymous tip to the IRS. Brenda's optimized tax returns? Not so optimized anymore. Step 3. Expose Eric for the fraud he actually is. Eric wasn't just my best friend. He was also an insurance broker. And insurance brokers, fun fact, aren't supposed to commit fraud. I happened to know that Eric had been adjusting a few policies over the years. Little things, nothing major, but definitely illegal. Did I ever say anything before? Nope, because I was a good friend. Was I about to say something now? Absolutely. I drafted a beautifully detailed email, complete with screenshots of every shady adjustment I had quietly collected over the years, and sent it to his company's compliance department. Step 4. Make the breakup as expensive as possible. Brenda had been under the delusion that when she finally graced me with the official announcement of her betrayal, we'd handle things amicably. She wanted a clean separation. Quick, smooth, easy. So I made sure it was the exact opposite. Using their own stupidly signed contract, my lawyer found every angle possible to ensure that Brenda and Eric were financially destroyed before they could even move in together. Half the house? Not happening. Spousal support? Not a chance. The prenup Brenda never read before signing? Oh, she was about to understand every word of it now. Step 5. The grand finale. The best revenge isn't just about making someone suffer. It's about making them suffer publicly. I sent an email to all of our mutual friends, family, and, just for fun, Eric's coworkers. Subject: important legal update regarding Brenda and Eric. Attached: their notarized affair contract. Nothing else. No explanation. Just a PDF of their own stupidity. And then, I went to bed. Slept like a baby. The aftermath. It took less than 48 hours for everything to explode. Eric lost his job. Apparently, insurance companies frown upon fraud. Brenda got hit with a full IRS audit. And their relationship collapsed faster than their escape plan. Brenda tried calling, begging, even showed up at my doorstep. I just looked at her, smiled, and said, "Brenda, I don't take walk-ins without an appointment." Then I shut the door. Brenda was standing outside my door like she had just realized she set her entire life on fire and was now hoping I had a fire extinguisher. I didn't. I did, however, have a front-row seat to her downfall. She knocked. Again. Louder this time. "Stephen, I just want to talk." I leaned against the door, arms crossed. "Brenda, you're not scheduled for an appointment." I heard her exhale sharply. "Can you stop treating this like some kind of joke?" I swung the door open, grinning. "Oh, I'm sorry. Are we not taking things seriously? I just assumed we were, considering you and Eric had a signed and notarized document about how to ruin my life in the most professional way possible." She groaned. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I laughed. "Oh, I know. You meant for me to find out on your schedule. But then Eric lost a shoe, and now here we are." Her jaw clenched, but she knew she had no defense. "I need to fix this," she finally said. I tilted my head. "Fix what, exactly? Your relationship with Eric? Your fraudulent tax filings? Your financial ruin? Or maybe your social life, because I don't know if you've checked your phone lately, but nobody is Team Brenda right now." She flinched. I smiled wider. I had spent years letting Brenda control the narrative, letting her be the one with the upper hand in every situation. But now, she was completely, utterly powerless. And she hated it. She looked down, shifting her weight like she was debating between crying or running. I figured I'd help her make a decision. "By the way," I said casually, "you might want to check in on Eric." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "Oh, he's not doing too great." Her face twisted in confusion. "Because of the job?" "Well, that too. But mostly because of the—" I waved my hand, searching for the right word. "Lawsuit?" She paled. "What?" I nodded. "Yeah, turns out when you commit insurance fraud, and someone hands over detailed, beautifully organized evidence, people tend to get very angry about it." Brenda's breathing got shallow. "Stephen." "Oh, don't Stephen me. This is what happens when you get legally creative with your adultery." She swallowed. He's being sued?" I grinned. "Oh, not just sued. He might be going to jail." Her mouth fell open. I shrugged. Maybe he should have used that rope escape for something more productive. Brenda looked like she was about to collapse. And that's when I saw it. The panic. The realization that she had bet everything on Eric, and now Eric was completely sinking. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. "You thought I'd just sit back and let you two play house after destroying my life?" She didn't answer. I tilted my head. "Brenda, I want you to really think about something. What does your future look like?" Silence. "Because I'll tell you what mine looks like," I continued. "Peaceful, financially secure, with a house that you have zero claim to and a reputation that remains completely intact." She still didn't answer. I smiled. "Now, tell me, what does Eric have to offer you now?" Her eyes darted left and right, like she was looking for an answer that didn't exist. She had nothing left. No backup plan. No clean way out. And, most importantly, no Eric. Brenda exhaled shakily. "Stephen, please." I sighed dramatically. "Brenda, I don't know what you expect me to do here. Should I be your new backup plan?" She visibly winced. "Oh." I smirked. "You thought about it, huh? You actually thought maybe you could come crawling forgive you?" Her silence. I let out a low chuckle. "Brenda, let me make this very simple for you. We are done." She blinked, like she had somehow convinced herself there was still hope. No second chances. No let's work through it. No dramatic, last-minute reconciliation where you cry and I cave, and we magically fix everything. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You're about to live with the real consequences of what you did. No exit strategy, no carefully planned, Stephen doesn't find out yet, nonsense. This is reality." She looked like she might actually pass out. I smiled. "And guess what? I'm fine." She sucked in a breath. "I am going to be absolutely fine." And then, I closed the door in her face. No grand finale. No dramatic final words. Just her standing outside, realizing she had officially lost everything. And me? I walked back inside, sat down, and laughed. Because this was the best feeling in the world. Brenda didn't leave right away. After I shut the door, I heard her footsteps shuffle around on the porch like she was debating whether to try again. Like maybe, if she knocked one more time, I'd suddenly have a complete personality shift and let her back into my life. But I didn't. Because unlike her, I had standards. Eventually, after standing there like a lost door-to-door salesman who forgot their pitch, she walked away. I heard her car start, the engine stalling once because Brenda never properly maintained anything, and then she was gone. For good. And I sat back, exhaled for the first time in what felt like months, and enjoyed the absolute silence of a house that no longer contained any morons. It wasn't immediate peace. There was still a divorce to finalize, loose ends to tie up, and people to deal with. But the hardest part, the worst part, was officially over. And I was still standing. 3 weeks later. A funny thing happens when you burn your own life to the ground in front of an audience. People talk. And in Brenda's case, they talked a lot. It started with her family. They had been embarrassed beyond belief when the details of her betrayal went public. Her mother called me once, apologizing for raising a moron. Her sister? Stopped talking to her entirely. Then, there were our mutual friends. At first, a few of them had tried to stay neutral. The whole, let's not pick sides routine. That lasted maybe a week. Because once more details started coming out, the contract, the escape plan, the tax fraud, Eric losing his entire career and financial stability, people started backing away from Brenda like she was a sinking cruise ship. And Eric? Oh, Eric was done. After he lost his job, he tried getting a new one in another city. Turns out, insurance fraud follows you. The lawsuit against him wasn't going away anytime soon, and suddenly, no company wanted to touch him. So what did he do? He tried to sell his car. And, in a moment of pure poetic justice, guess who ended up buying it? Me. Oh, I didn't need the car. I didn't even like the car. But I saw it listed online for a ridiculously low price, and I thought, why not? So I bought Eric's car. In cash. And when I picked it up, oh, the look on his face. Priceless. Brenda was already gone by then. Not to be dramatic, but her entire life collapsed in record time. The IRS audit was in full swing. She had no support system left, and, this was the best part, her landlord kicked her out of her apartment because she had lied on her lease application. Because of course she did. So she left town. Where? I didn't care. She could go wherever she wanted, as long as it was far, far away from me. 1 year later. The thing about getting betrayed like that is, at some point, you have to decide how much power you're going to give it. Brenda and Eric, they were the worst mistake of my life. But I wasn't about to let them define the rest of it. So I moved forward, got my divorce, kept my house, built a life that had absolutely nothing to do with either of them. And I thrived. I thrived because I was finally free. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering why things felt off. No more being tied to people who never deserved to be in my life to begin with. And Brenda? Well, last I heard, she was working a job she hated, renting a tiny apartment in a city where nobody knew her name, and desperately trying to rewrite the past. But some stories? They stay exactly the way they happened. And this story? It ended exactly the way it was supposed to, with me winning. The end. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel.